It's really, truly lovely to have you. Thank you for looking in on this. This is another one in the series on God, and hanging around mainly the book of John. Here, John says this. I'm going to read these few verses, all right? You're very well acquainted with them, but here they are. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. That'll do for the moment. I'm not interested right at this moment of going into John's theological purpose, okay? But I am wanting to say that the one who in verse 14 becomes flesh, human, that's the one we know as Jesus of Nazareth. The one we know as Jesus of Nazareth, listen, is God. Whatever God is, whatever makes God God. Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, is God being, becoming, choosing to be, and continuing to choose to be a man. The Jesus Christ that we know is a man, fully a man, altogether a man. And this will worry you, but don't let it worry you. Jesus of Nazareth was just a man. But he was God, choosing to be just a man. It's always God. He never ceases to be God, but he's always God choosing to be a human. And that one in John 1:14 is the one who becomes human. So all the Greek stories who tell about Zeus and whoever, it's all nonsense. All the mythological stories about who made what and who fought what, who destroyed what and who cut so-and-so up, all of that is baloney. John says of the one true God that the one we know as Jesus Christ of Nazareth is God becoming, choosing to be, because he wanted to be a human. Is that just for a minute or two, just let your mind roam around that for a minute. Do you know who you are? You are one of a human family that God thinks so much of that he wanted to become one, not like one, not sort of one. but wanted to be actually, really, totally, completely one. And that means not only does Jesus of Nazareth have flesh and bone and blood, he eats and drinks, gets tired, and all of that kind of thing, as humans do. It means he's born into a stream of history. He doesn't fall down out of the sky. He is born via a little Jewish girl. He grows within her, and he leaves her body as a little baby. I mean, a really, really, really little baby. He grows into a really, really, really boy. And he would have been schooled in various ways, like all the other boys. He would have gone to bed, he would have got up in the morning, did his schooling, he would have worked. He'd have done all those things as a boy. As he grew into a young man, he would take the bar mitzvah experience upon himself, where he would take God's yoke upon him as a Jewish boy. His father would teach him carpentry, as was customary. He would see things, he would engage in things that boys do. He's a human. And why is he a human? He wants to be a human. And why does he want to be a human? More than one reason, of course. But he wants to be a human because he loves humans. Do you believe that? Well, I know he wanted to save them. So do you know that. But why does he want to save them? Because he loves humans. Does he like all that we do? It's a silly question, isn't it? No, he doesn't like all we do. But he knows this, that we, following our father and mother Adam and Eve, we chose to reject God. And rather than obliterating us, God, when he purposed to create us, knew that we would rebel and would need redemption. And he was more than willing to do that. He did it with joy. The way a surgeon rips out a cancerous tumor with pleasure to save a patient, and finds joy in doing that. The way nurses and doctors who care do what they do to bring health and healing to humans. So God did and felt all of that. And John's point is that the creation has nothing whatever to do, among other things he wants to tell us. He wants us to know that the creation has got nothing whatever to do with the gods that the Romans or the Greeks or anybody else in Asia thought of as gods. No. In the book of Mark, what, chapter 12? Let me find out. In chapter 12, a scribe came, one of the hardliners, and he listened to Jesus talking, and the thought struck him, you know, he speaks well. And he comes to Jesus and says to him, you know, all these arguments that go on about what's the greatest commandment, stuff like that. Teacher, what do you say? And in Mark 12, Jesus said, here's the greatest commandment. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And you shall worship the Lord your God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength and mind. And the second, it's like that. You will love your neighbor as yourself. There is one true God. John speaks of him in John 1. And that one true God that the Jews, following the Deuteronomy Shema, would say repeatedly in the great synagogue and in their prayers, they would say, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And Jesus, following the usual, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And then the second one, like that, is a commandment of loving, a word, a call to love. Love your neighbor as yourself. And what is that love your neighbor as yourself business? No doubt it means a lot and works on various levels. But I know it means this. He speaks of God who is the creator. And then he speaks of the worshipper and his fellow worshippers. And because God is the creator of them, he wants them to see themselves as God's creation. Think of yourselves as those who have been created by God. And when you look at your neighbor, think of him the same way. Love yourself, not in this, you know this is true, not in that selfish, self-centered, vain way that we're very capable of. No, no. He's saying, see yourself for who you are. See yourself for your destiny. See yourself as someone who has been created by God in his image, with the glory that he offers to you and will bring to you if you want him. And you see the man over there, the woman over there, the people over there, they're like you. And love for them in such a text is not all emotion. It doesn't deny emotion, mark you. But he's not saying you should feel for all of them the way you feel for your darling husband or wife or children or parents. He's not saying that the humans ought to cease being humans. Be human. But when he says, love yourself and love them the way you love yourself, he's talking about yourself in light of the one true God who created you, the one true God who created them. And you've made a covenant with him. I don't know if you can do this. I certainly cannot. Well, I'm about to overstate the case. Sometimes I do weep. Now and then, rarely. I talk to God and I weep in my conversation with him. I like God. Yeah, I know like's not strong enough, but it's a part of being human. I like him. And so do you. We have our moments when, wasn't God good for doing that? And we like him. Do you know anything that we love and don't find joy in? But characteristically, certainly of me, I don't weep the way I've wept over those who mean more to me than being alive does. He doesn't need my pity. And I don't get romantic feelings about him, though I think God is romantic. He sees things beautifully and lovely and all of that, so I mean it that way. But I don't feel romantic about God. And neither did the Jews. And God doesn't expect that. Feel emotional about me, though it happens. No. The Jews made a covenant, and believers, New Testament believers, have done the same thing. We've made a covenant with God and committed ourselves in covenant love to him. That is, we commit to him, we admire him, we worship him, we seek to serve him. All of that comes under the heading of loving him and loving ourselves. Carries that also, which is part of what Jesus means when he said, and since I've told you the first, here's the second. It's like the first. How is it like the first? Well, part of it is what I've just told you. See yourself as one made by God. See yourself as one God cares for. And God has a destiny, and God has created you to be his eternal companion, working in his world. And think that, and act like that as God enables us toward our neighbors. Yes? So, when John, in the book of John, speaks about the Word who is what we call, for convenience sake, a member of the triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. When John speaks about the Word becoming human, he's saying, not Zeus, not any other creative gods that people talk about, just the one true God who is triune. And whatever makes God to be God, the indivisible one God who is made up, once more, for convenience sake we speak, three persons. One member of the Godhead who is God. And there's no disagreement with the Father and the Spirit. Has one mind, one heart, one being with the others. She is the one who becomes human. Once more, I know it's tedious, but I want you to hear this. I'd love you to love this truth, for this truth will do you no harm. It'll help you both to honor as God enables us. You know, we're sinners. You know what I mean. It will help you to honor yourself. And it will help you and me to honor those who are not ourselves. And when we do it, we'll do it because we honor him who has created us and created us to be his companions forever. But it's not the gods who did it. It's not the Greek gods, it's not the Roman gods, and all of the different names, not the Asian gods and their thousands, just one true God. But we rejected that one true God. Our father and mother did, and we followed in their path. And then Bedlam set in. Because we knew the truth about God, we suppressed it, held it down. That's Romans 1:18 and following. Romans 1:18 and following. Maybe someday, I don't know if this is doable for us in our little environment, one of these days we'll maybe get the scriptures up on the screen. Maybe, we'll see. But Romans 1:18 and following speaks of the wrath of God being manifested against all unrighteousness. And what does that mean? He goes on to tell us a bit about it. He said, for knowing the truth, we humans, Gentiles there in particular, but we humans suppressed the truth. How did we do that? In unrighteousness. That's what the text says. And then it goes on to say, we began to worship everything in sight. We created gods. We worshiped things that crawled, that walked on all fours. We even ended up worshiping ourselves. This is all Romans 1:18, right through the end, verse 31. But a little section 18 and about 22 in particular, yes? Gods. Gods. What? Look, I hate the way I do this, but you already know how I go about doing it. No, well, here he comes again. He'll be all over the place. That's true. God came into the world in and as Jesus Christ. Why? Because he loves humans. Because humans needed to be redeemed. And he came into the world multiple reasons. One of them I'm isolating here at this moment. He wanted to expose before human eyes and in human life the evil of evil and the stupidity and the destructive power of believing in gods and living according to the forces, the invisible, evil forces that manifest themselves in visible structures, schools, factories, government structures, name them, banks, financial, this, that, and the other. Name all the visible structures that humans need to live by as interdependent people. They all became corrupt way back when. As soon as we said no to God and began to live that way, we were in trouble. Then what happened? We started experiencing famine through drought, storms, this, that, disease, blight on the crops, and all of that. There were forces at work in the world that humans lived in that rejected the one true God, who was, they said and understood to be early on, he's the one, the creator, the controller, the giver of all these things. But they said no to him. Called themselves gods. After a while they lost that. And we're dealing with forces they couldn't handle. So what did they do? They created gods. You see the crops? How come, an Egyptian kid would say, how come you throw seed in the ground and up comes food? How do you explain that? Now, we today, we would explain it in scientific and this, that, you see. But they didn't. They told stories. How come there are storms that wreck and ruin? Well, they told stories. But why did they come up with the stories? And they told stories about gods, you see. Why did they come up with gods and stories? I think I've said this before. I can sort of hear myself saying it. But I'm saying it again. You've probably forgotten, haven't you? Why did they come up with gods? Why did they personify the forces and have gods connected with the forces? Why did they do that? You can't talk to gravity. You can't argue with the wind. But if you make the wind a god, and some did precisely that, or if you linked a god with the wind and he or she had control of it, then you can maybe talk them into being kind, get them to feel sorry for you. Or if you can't do that, bribe them, give them goodies. Look what I've got for you. And maybe if they were angry, giving them gifts would put them in a better mood. Or if they were very good and give you a lot of things, you'd return them back and you'd tell them how wonderful you are. All of that. It's what they did. It's what they did. Now, I'm oversimplifying the story, but the direction we're going is the correct direction. So, they got the gods, they created the gods, and gods, listen, this is a little tricky here. Gods are real. Well, what do you mean they're real? They are real. Like a hallucination is real, a dream is real, that kind of thing. No point in walking up to a fellow who had a bad dream and saying bad dreams aren't real. Of course they're real. And the gods are invented. They're mental creations. And the mental creation takes over and controls the mental creator. And so this is what happened, don't you see? And some of the gods like humans, some of the gods didn't. So some of the gods were loved better than others. And some of the gods were the gods of the fields. Some were gods of the waters. Some the gods of the sky, all of that. And the world began to worship their gods. And they credited it to their gods. The giving or the withholding, all of that. John will go on in John chapter 1, beyond the verses we read, and tell us all things were made by him. He came into his own world. The world he created, he says. The world was made by him, but the world didn't know him. And this is a major, central reason why God came into the world, in and as Jesus Christ, to expose the stupidity of polytheism and idolatry, as he did in the Old Testament. And he did it in all kinds of ways in the Old Testament, by speech, by miracles here and there. And now he does it in the person of Jesus Christ. And he wants to make it clear there is but one God. And Jesus will say, we are to worship him. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And he wants us to understand that we too, humans, are not gods. We are the image of God. And our destiny, the glory that God gave to us that we have fallen short of, is the glory of the one true God. And he wants us to trust him. And he has come in Jesus Christ to deliver us from faith in, trust in all those other gods. I don't know where you're living right now. I don't know. What do I know? But I just know perhaps you're someone who's living in a part of a world where you see statues all around you, and you see festivals and feasts, and you see processions and carrying of this, that, and the other. I don't mean to be rude. I just mean to be plain. They're come into our world, actually in and lived in our presence as a human. The one true God come into the world, in and as Jesus of Nazareth. And God, in a passage in John chapter 3, verse 16, that one true God that perhaps you haven't had the chance to hear about. That one true God, of him it said, for God so loved the world. You, wherever you are. God so loved you, who's a part of the human family. God loved you, whom He created. You are one with me. I am one with you. We are one with another. The whole human family is under assault, both in the West and in the Middle and in the East, under assault from the gods that we have created because we've been misled and corrupted and blind. And Jesus came, sent by God, to say to you and to me, there is one God, and He loves you and wants to free you from all of this, from all the toil and all the despair and all the senses. Anything going to be better? That's the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. And you preacher man, you a shepherd, a leader, and a congregation of God's people that has a gospel that big, as big as John 3:16 and 1 John 2:2 and on. Are you a minister of the gospel? It's for the world. And what are we doing about it? What are you saying week after month after year? Huh? What are you talking about? A world in awful need. What are you saying? Thank you for being here. Please come back. Would you do that?